Welcome to the sound of the start of final day in the EFL regular season. It's the sound of waves lapping on the shore. A distant tanker sounds its horn. Ice cream van in the distance is just twinkling in the breeze. We're on the beach. There's fun in the sun. But there's also some serious picks to be made on the NTT20 betting show sponsored by AK Bets. It's me, Ali Maxwell. It's him, George Elek. We're making betting picks ahead of a full slate of EFL fixtures to end this season. Betting is for over 18s only. The show is for over 18s only. Betting comes with significant risks, so brush up on them by heading to gambleaware.org. Last week, the penultimate week of the season, and both of us made profit. I was just over 7 points up in total. That's what happens when you get your nap up, your next best, and a goal scorer. Just what I needed. Chesterfield -1 against Morecambe, Leyton against Coventry. Just about, with thanks to Louis Binks for not being able to sort his feet out. And Jordan Thomas, anytime goal scorer against Carlisle. My Bradford and Peterborough BTTS and win double was no good. Bradford had already lost that before 3 p.m. even came. You got your nap up as well. Crawley winning comfy against Northampton Town. And your goal scorer, Matthew Dennis, at 11-4. That was one of the great 5 minutes of the betting show season, George. Matthew Dennis scored for Carlisle against Cheltenham in the 29th minute. Jordan Thomas scored for Cheltenham against Carlisle in the 33rd minute.
Yeah, very. If only it was always like that. It's a market or a that part of the show has been a bit of a struggle this season. Our goal scorers in the past have always been. We've had some good moments, whereas we haven't nailed that many this time around. I've had a lot of annoying ones where they score the week after. So it kind of sums it up that in the penultimate show of the whole season, we bang in 2 winners in the same game 5 minutes apart.
No DMB double joy for you this time out with Watford and Derby. Watford were ahead at Blackburn but lost 2-1. And I actually can't remember the Derby result off the top
Derby
of my
won.
head.
They won 1-0.
Derby won. Oh, that's got to be tough to take. And Charlton at Wrexham did not go the way you thought it was going to go. I let the side down. I let the side down somewhat in the unders quad. We couldn't go back to back to back because I got Barrow Bromley completely wrong. 3-3 draw on the beach, really annoying. Your run of correct unders picks continued. You've now got 8 in a row, and Goffey was on the show before that. He got his 2 up as well, so very impressive. And last year, I'm just really pleased sitting here, George. I love Final Day. I love the Final Day betting show. Last year, Final Days were split across 2 weekends. I hated that. This feels much more fun, much more natural to me. And you're going with the usual. You've got 5 points to stake and you're spreading them across next best, goal scorer and long shot. And I'm going to do my usual final day routine, which long-term listeners of the show will know is an extra point in the staking pan for 6 points staked for me this week. I'm going to present 3 -2 handicap winners, as I think on final day we often see teams really, really kick on and win by big margins, more so than normal, and 3 goal scorers to score 2 or more. Another thing that I believe is a feature of final day is players enjoying themselves and racking up a couple of goals to finish the campaign. And then at the end, an over 4.5 goals, fun in the sun combo bet. We've put together 2 selections each, so 4 in total for that one. We'll tell you all about it at the end of the show. What is your best bet of the weekend of final day?
So yeah, I mean, with final day, I feel like I always give this little spiel. Like the prices are so different to what they'd normally be because of some guesswork and re-rating around motivation. And I often kind of like to set about this weekend by finding games where a team has been downgraded for lack of motivation, and I'm not entirely sure it's fair. And I think in Sheffield United at home to Blackburn, we've got that, where with AK Bets, we've got Sheffield United, the best price, top price in the market at time of recording, 11-8, Blackburn a 2-1, and the draw is 23-10. Now, there's no way that there would normally be that tight between the two of them because at the prices they are now, that would suggest that Blackburn are kind of the better team at a neutral venue, which is quite patently not correct. The reason it's like this is because Blackburn probably need to win this game. If they win this game, they have a very good chance of finishing the top 6 and getting in the playoffs, where they'd probably play Sheffield United. Whereas Blades are going to finish third. They know they're going to finish third. There is nothing on this game at all in terms of what they could gain from a season standpoint in order to, if they were to win it or not. As I'm saying this, I kind of realised that if Sheffield United just really fancied playing Blackburn, then they could just roll over and lose the game in order to facilitate that. But given that there's no team really in this playoff race who are playing particularly well apart from Blackburn, I think that's pretty unlikely. Blades
That's the sort of
bounce
thing that
back.
always, sort of thing that has to be mentioned. It'd be a dereliction of duty if you didn't. But we're always second guessing motivations and what teams might want or not want heading into final day. I just don't believe that in the EFL that sort of thing would ever happen. Really, like
Chris Wilder being like, lads, they're rubbish at half time. Just let them have it. Let's play them again in 5 days. That's not going to happen. So the reason I think we can back Sheffield United at 11-8 and should be doing so, there are a few reasons for it. Firstly, we have a Blackburn side who, off the back of a hellish run, have won 4 consecutive games. And even though that is immensely impressive, and I think it is, for Valérien Ismaël and his future at the club being huge in terms of planning going forward, I wouldn't say the performances have necessarily, apart from maybe the 4-1 win over Millwall, the performances haven't been incredible. There hasn't been like a massive turnaround in terms of pure underlying numbers and what we're seeing in both boxes. They scored one of their 2 shots away at Sunderland. Against Watford, they went behind and came back to win the game 2-1 in a game of a few chances or few good opportunities either. Obviously, they've got individuals, Todd Cantwell being one of them, Tyree Sterling another, who are in banging form right now. But even so, when you compare that to the wealth of talent that Sheffield United have, it still pales into insignificance. And there's a reason why, when you look at their points tallies this season, Blades are so far clear. Now, Sheffield United bounced back from the defeat at Turf Moor with a 2-0 win away at a Stoke side who were desperate for something out of that game in order to ensure their own safety, and were unable to do so. They were bang at it that day. The team selection, everything about it suggested that Chris Wilder is not looking at these 2 games as an opportunity to rest players. He clearly wants to build up some kind of form going into the playoffs after their most difficult period of the season so far. There is also a nice little wrinkle, which it was mentioned to us by Sam Parry, who runs The Pinch and also runs NTT20.com, where there is an idea that possibly Chris Wilder would quite like to beat the points tally that Paul Heckingbottom took Sheffield United up with. And I can definitely see that. Chris Wilder is a man who I have a lot of time and respect for, but I think pettiness is probably, if he was asked to list his few biggest vices.
That's not petty. Wanting to set the championship points record for your boyhood club, not petty.
Fine.
Very normal.
Well, they're even better than
normal for any competitive human being.
I think the idea maybe being more that he wanted to beat the person who achieved the success with the club following his departure, albeit there was another manager in between those two. And also, we know that whenever Chris Wilder refers to their points tally and their total this season, he, as he's entitled to do, ignores the fact they started on -2. It's always the points number, including the 2 points they were docked, because that's how many points they've won over the course of the season. Yeah. It clearly matters a lot to him. I think this game clearly matters a lot to him. I think they'll be fully motivated to go and put in a performance and get a result at home to go into the playoffs full of confidence in front of their home fans. So I'm not entirely sure there should be any weighted factor into this at all, especially because there's also a fair chance that at half-time, whatever the scoreline is, Blackburn go in and they hear that Bristol City are 2-0 up, and they hear that Coventry are 2-0 up, and they're like, well, this is done. Like there's nothing we can really do now. Like it's more likely than not that Bristol Rovers this season, unless they're ahead, will be over going to the final stage of this game, rather than the onus being on them to get the result they need to force their way in. So, because even if they win this game, I'm pretty sure they'd still, if you take away, because I think they're about 5-1 to finish in the top 6. There'd be a coin toss even if they were to win this game as to whether or not they'd actually get in. So, I think Blades should be the price that they would be in this game if it had happened 4 weeks ago. And at 11-8, I'm willing to back them to get the job done.
Yeah, he puts the petty in competitiveness, which I love about him. So my first pick, and it's not a nap because all 6 picks this week are just 1 point for all, none of them standing above the others in terms of the staking plan, is Bristol City -2 at home to Preston. Before I start, I just want to say that The NTT20 betting squad is always brilliant, but this week has been even more brilliant than ever. I think it's fair to say that a lot of the guys in there have been listening to the betting show for a long time. A lot of them enjoy the fun in the sun angles that I've put forward over the last couple of years and have very much added to it by doing a lot of amazing research, better than I could have done, certainly this week ahead of the show. So Andy Watson has put together some incredible stats on final day, both in terms of overs and shots and cards and handicaps and things of that nature, also breaking it down into, buckets of motivation. So when teams with nothing to play for play against teams with something to play for, all those sorts of stats. It's just incredible, and it kind of sums up the NTT20 squad, that there are people who, A, do that stuff, and B, happily share it with others for their benefit. So thank you to Andy, and a massive thank you to Eamon as well, who provided another excellent resource, which was really helpful for betting purposes, which was a really nice layout of this weekend's fixture list in all three leagues, with each team's permutations very clearly laid out and colour-coded as well, which is a nice touch for those of us who learn visually. In the Championship, I'm picking Bristol City to win and cover the -2 handicap against Preston, even though they don't really need to, right? So, in the Championship, on final day, per Andy Watson's stats, the -2 handicap has been covered 3 or more times in 4 of the last 5 seasons and 9 of the last 12 seasons. So Championship final day, we often see at least a quarter of matches having a -2 handicap covered. I'm going for Bristol City at Ashton Gate. The context here is they have lost their last 2 games, which means that a playoff spot, which looked very secure, is still not entirely secured. It is still likely, as long as they step up here and win at home to North End. North End are a team that's gone from being 14th on the 1st of April to going into final day bang in trouble. They've lost 4 straight. The panic is... It's an absolute stench of panic coming out of Preston North End, and you can understand why. They've all been 2-1 defeats, which I think is quite an interesting aspect of this. At the end of the season, no one's bothering to talk about underlying numbers anymore. No one's really talking about the balance of play. It's results. But frankly, the last 2 games against Argyle and Hull should never end in 0 points for Preston based on the balance of play. Hull had 2 penalties, which were both questionable, I would say. Preston dominated Argyle in terms of the shot count, squandered all their chances pretty much, and got done on the break in that defeat last weekend. So they are absolutely all over the place mentally, it seems. Certainly the fan base, and by the looks of things, the players are scrambling around thinking, hold on, after we lost to Villa in the Cup, we thought we were kind of done here, and instead we're travelling to Bristol City, and we really need something here. With Preston, there's quite a lot of permutations at play, because albeit one of them is very simple. If they win, they will be safe. They will secure their safety. If they draw, if they lose, there's quite a lot at play. A lot of it depends on what Luton and Hull do. And if they draw, then that brings Derby into play as well. The way I see this is that I don't think all the permutations particularly help them. The obvious fact is they are... Bristol City are strong favourites to win this game, because Bristol City are excellent at home, really need to win to secure their playoff spot. They've got the 4th best home record in the league. All season, they've been very good at winning games at home against teams that they should be in the bottom half of the table. And so Preston are most likely are not going to win this game, which means a draw or a defeat, loads of permutations coming into play, loads of other teams where they kind of need to know what's going on. And I just wonder if that might feed into a little bit of confusion and therefore incoherence in what they need to do, how they need to approach it at different game states at different times. I'm personally not sure that it helps them. The fact that at some point they might need to go for the win, I don't think that suits them game plan wise. I don't think it suits Preston to be trying to go for a win at Bristol City. I think that will play into Bristol City's hands. If they draw, they will probably be safe in terms of probability, given how many other results would have to go against them, but it won't feel comfortable at all doing that. And, well, if they lose, they could still be safe. I just don't think all of that makes it easy for Preston, and what they need to do in the game could change during the game, depending on results around them. I think there's a chance that Bristol City go 1 or 2 goals up and go, well, that's all we need. What we have, we hold. We'll stop playing. But if Preston are pushing onto them a lot because they need to get back and try and draw or win the game, I think that gives Bristol City a chance to finish really strongly in front of their fans with a couple of goals, or 3 goals I need here or more, head into the playoffs confident. Armstrong off the bench, not ideal if you're chucking men forward. Mehmeti came off the bench, not ideal if you're chucking men forward against them. So I think there's a chance that Bristol City cut loose. I was expecting Bristol City -2 to be much shorter than the 13-2 available with AK bets. So I'm backing it. George, what's your next best?
So my next best is aggressively taking on the bet that you just put up. And in what could be an NTT20 betting show first, I'm putting up a draw. I'm putting up the draw at 11-4 in that game between Bristol City and Preston. Now, quite often at this stage of the season, you get games where it becomes pretty obvious that a draw would be a pretty good result for both sides. And the price of the draw is therefore much shorter than it would normally be, where unless you've got a massive favourite against a big outsider, the draw price is normally pretty level around kind of the 11-4 mark. And if we look at this weekend's fixtures in the Championship, the draw between Burnley and Millwall is basically the same price as Bristol City against Preston, whereas if you were to look at the game between Derby and Stoke, the price of a draw is 2-1. And that has been kind of pegged down as a game where a draw is probably a good result for both teams, even though Derby could still get relegated if it is a draw in that game. And the price has been shortened accordingly. I think this Bristol City-Preston game should be one of those games, but it isn't. The reason for that being, this is a game 100% where Preston fans and Bristol City fans going into it will think we need to win. It's in our hands. If we win, then we're going to achieve what we need to do. And I have no doubt as well that the managers and the players will go out thinking we need to try and win this game. However, there is a massive do not lose mentality. Losing this game for either Bristol City or Preston would be an absolute disaster. If Preston lose this game, then all it takes is for Hull and Luton to pick up anything at all from their games and they're relegated. If Bristol City were to lose this game, then it would mean that they could be overtaken by a solitary point from Coventry, with a solitary point by Millwall, because their goal difference is worse. It depends on how that works, but Millwall by beating them would go past them, but Coventry could go past them with a draw, and Blackburn crucially would go past them with a win. Whereas if Bristol City were to get a point from this game, then their goal difference comes into play in terms of that too. So it just seems like a game where both sides coming into it, the nervy nature of it, the fact that Liam Manning and his Bristol City side generally are relatively, I wouldn't say they're the most cut loose style attacking side. And if either team does go ahead, then surely the onus will be on them to keep that lead rather than throw men forward in order to try and make the point safe and score loads of goals. The nervy nature of this game, because there's so much at stake for both teams, will continue from basically the whistle till the end, regardless of what's going on. And as I say, there's a fair chance here with 20, 15, 10 minutes to go left of the game. Both teams will know that a point is probably enough in order for them to secure safety. And that doesn't mean that they necessarily just together, collaborate and try and force a draw. But it does mean that, for example, if Bristol City are 1-0 up with 10 minutes to go, and Preston know that a draw is going to be enough to make them safe, and Bristol City know they've got a 2-goal cushion, then probably the equaliser becomes more likely. So, yeah, I think that a draw here is very, very likely, and in my mind is far more likely than a run-of-the-mill game, and yet it is the price you would expect to see in a run-of-the-mill game. And if both teams do draw, then it's heavy odds on that Bristol City finish in the top 6 and Preston finish outside the bottom 3.
Hey, you know what? I really disagree with the way that you see this game, but I completely respect your opinion. And
I really disagree with the way you see this game.
You have dug a gigantic hole of permutations, and you found a little permutation parsnip growing right at the bottom of it, which you've pulled out there. Whereas I'm just going for full PNER spiraling vibes. Ultimately, let's see how we go there. League One. Imagine if Preston win 1-0 and you don't win your bet despite everything, and I've missed it by miles. In League One, I've got Charlton to cover the -2 handicap at home to Burton Albion at 5-1. Now, for Charlton, they're in 5th. They can get to fourth place, which would mean having home advantage in the second leg, because Wycombe and Stockport, who are 2 points above them, are playing against each other. Obviously, therefore, can't both win. So if Charlton win, and if one of Wycombe or Stockport wins, then Charlton will secure fourth spot. They can also do so if that game is a draw and they win by 5 goals. So it's a very, very outside shot, but there is some reason for Charlton and Nathan Jones to look at this game and say, if we are ahead early and if things are going in our favour, there is a reason why it would be helpful for us to keep going and try and win by 5 or even 6 goals. Because, having home advantage in the second leg is something that basically all teams want. They don't know whether they finish 4th or 5th, whether they'll be playing Stockport or Wycombe. I suspect they'll be more pleased to play against Wycombe. But I think there's a chance that they give this a pretty good go. And I think the circumstances of their opponent gives them a favour here, because Burton have done so well to secure safety with a game left. They've been a top half League One team since Gary Bowyer arrived. There's no doubt about that. But they have secured that great escape with a game to spare. They played in midweek where they got a point against Wigan to make it mathematically confirmed. And I'm not sure that heading to the Valley, even though they are just they're a good side, they know their roles. It's hard for me to imagine, having given everything in so many games to squeeze out the points that they have, that they are heading to the Valley in peak motivation and peak condition, having played in midweek. There's a chance, obviously, that Charlton tone it down in order to rest legs ahead of the playoffs, which start not long, at the end of next week. But I also think there's a decent chance they just try and nick home advantage by smashing Burton, head into the playoffs purring, put behind them that defeat against Wrexham. And I think there's a chance Burton are pretty happy to take it fairly easy. So I'm going to take those chances, and I'll have to hope that Charlton take their chances. 5-1 Charlton, -2 in League One. Also in League Two, I'm going for Bradford -2 at home to Fleetwood. This is at 4-1. Now, I've been put off before on final day when I really strongly feel like a team is going to dominate and win their final day match comfortably for a variety of factors. But when the handicap price -2 at 4-1 seems short, you don't back it because of that. And then it wins and you wonder whether you just kind of spooked yourself for no reason. In Andy Watson's stats, one of the strongest trends from the data is that in League Two, those who have something to play for on final day versus those who don't have things to play for final day very much go in the favour of teams with something to play for. Like, this is where beachiness and motivation seemingly rears its head in the biggest ways in League Two, where teams who have something to play for in the last 4 or 5 years have only lost 1 of 24 matches against teams with nothing to play for. And Bradford have lots to play for, because if they win, they will win automatic promotion. They've got their big guns back. Smallwood suspension is over. He'll be back in midfield. Sarcevic, Patterson, Poynton, I've mentioned those guys loads so far in the last few months. They've been massive. For them, it'll be an insane home crowd at Valley Parade. They've got the best home record in the league this season. They've won 16 of their 22 games. And I think against a Fleetwood side who have nothing to play for, their games since the season has petered out have been very random and volatile. They lost 4-0 home to Swindon. They lost 3-0 at Chesterfield. So the opposition have covered -2 in 2 of their last 5 games. Also a 3-1 defeat at Harrogate in there as well. I think that they could be happy to let Bradford pretty much do whatever they want here. And so I think the 4-1 about Bradford -2 is worth a go. So my 3 -2 handicap picks are Bristol City -2 at 13-2, Charlton -2 at 5-1, and Bradford -2 at 4-1. Who's your goal scorer?
I'm surprised this game doesn't feature in your -2 picks, because my goal scorer is Charlie Chuck Kelman to score 2 or more at 17-2. This is obviously a huge game for Leyton Orient. A win here, any win whatsoever, will send them flying into the playoffs. They are one of the form teams in the whole league. In Kelman, you've got one of the form players in the whole of the EFL. A look through Leyton Orient's recent form, they have won their last 5 games. In those games, they've scored 3-3, 4-2 and 1, so very capable of racking up a big score. And they're up against the Huddersfield side, who are just on their knees begging for this season to end. I cannot imagine there is a club more desperate to be put out of their misery and end what has been a hellish campaign that started off with so much promise than Huddersfield Town. They come into this having lost all of their last 5 games. They've lost 7 of their last 8. They've lost 9 of their last 10. They've lost 11 of their last 14. It is like a terrible, terrible run. And the sacking of Mike Duff and the appointment of John Worthington has done nothing to stop that. If anything, I think from a defensive perspective, they look even worse. They are shipping goals consistently. They shipped 3 against Burton, 3 last time out away at Exeter. And this, to me, is like almost the perfect game for Orient, even though it doesn't look that way because of Hull's league position. But Orient should be able to go there full of confidence and just turn over a side who don't even want to be there. And if that is the case, and if they are able to put up a bit of a score, then Kelman will surely be the beneficiary of that. He's already scored 3 braces in this calendar year. He's clearly the focal point of the team. He's full of confidence, scores a lot of different types of goal. I'll be very surprised if he wasn't front and centre of this game. And I think Richie Wellens will be keen to send out a message to the other teams in the playoffs in this game and pick up another win to do so, and a resounding one at that. So yeah, Charlie Kelman, who should, if I'm right, be crowned winner of the League One Golden Boot, top goal scorer, to continue his good form and score 2 or more. 17-2, big price.
Yeah, on to my to score 2 or more. All of these, including Kelman, are available to back on the AK Bets website on the special section of the football part of the tab. They are there for you. George has told you about Kelman. Let me tell you about the best striker in the Championship, Josh Sargent, possibly playing his last ever game in the Championship. I'm backing him to score 2 or more at 15-2 at home to Cardiff with AK Bets. I'll start with some stats. Thank you to Andy for these. In the last 12 seasons of Championship data, probably the strongest trend that Andy Stats chucked up, to my eyes, was the record of teams who have already been relegated before final day. It is not good. 5 wins, 4 draws, 15 defeats, as you might expect. So pretty much 2/3 of their games are defeats. And when they're away from home, it's even worse. 10 games, 9 defeats, only 1 win. That's for teams already relegated. That is the case for Cardiff City, who travelled to Carrow Road. Carrow Road is just, is an iconic fun in the sun end of season venue, isn't it? It always seems kind of sunny at Carrow Road. Norwich, it'd be very fitting of their team personality this season if they suddenly cut loose and put together a great performance and win 4-5-0, which they've done a couple of times this season. But in between large swathes of the season where they've been really soft, really poor, really underwhelming, and not shown much resilience at all. But I think it's a big-ish game for Jack Wilshere. He's only got a couple, doesn't he, before the end of the season. The first was a 0 draw at Borough, which was a good result. But it's his home game. It's his one chance to show the Norwich faithful that he is the right man to take them forward, if that's what the club decides. And there's a lot of rumour flying around, but one of the stronger ones is that the club want to appoint Jack Wilshere as their manager. A big win here, and people head into the summer thinking, that team looked pretty exciting under Jack. I'd be excited to see more of that. It's unbelievable conditions for him to do that at home to an already relegated Cardiff side. So then there's Sargent, best striker in the league, in my opinion. This season and last season combined, the injuries have been frustrating because his stats are exceptional. He has scored 31 goals across 2 seasons in 47.4 90s. It's an amazing goal-scoring return. This might be his last game for Norwich. There's certainly some murmurs, and they'd be completely understandable, that Josh Sargent, looking ahead at next summer's World Cup, where he hasn't had it very easy with the US team over the last few years, but with them having a home World Cup and Sargent being in the Championship for potentially the 3rd season in a row, not being ideal. He's outgrown the club. He is performing at a level that Norwich are not reflecting, not even close to reflecting, in terms of the team's stature in the league. He doesn't owe them anything after spending 2 seasons playing for Norwich at Championship level. He's far too good for this level, and there should be plenty of suitors for a player like him. So I think there's a chance this is his last game for Norwich, and therefore I'm sure the motivation will be high to go out with a bang. He's also 4 away from Joel Pirot in the Golden Boot race. He's 4th at the moment, and while 4 seems like a lot, I mean, Perot scored 4 against Stoke the other day, so why couldn't Sargent rack up quite a few against Cardiff City and try and chase him down for the Golden Boot? The wrinkle there being that Borja Sainz is also in a very similar position. So yeah, I'm backing Sargent 13-2. I just expected the price to be shorter here. Perot, for example, for Leeds at Argyle is 5-1. I think 13-2 for Sargent is more than fair. That's my first goal scorer pick. Tell me about your long shot.
My long shot is in the Championship, and it is Plymouth Argyle to beat Leeds at 11-1. Right, now, at this stage, I think it's important to disclose when you have a vested interest in something. And I have, and hopefully some of you, if you listen to the pre-season betting show, have a fairly strong Leeds to win the league position. Those of you who sign up to TLS, our subscription model tipping newsletter, will be on both Leeds and Burnley. Yeah, I've been back and forth on this game quite a lot in the last few days, and maybe that's clouding my judgment, but I don't think it is. Look, Leeds are quite clearly the likely winners of this game. If they turn up and they play the way they played against Stoke, if they turn up and they play the way that they played against Bristol City, then they will likely run out winners, and it will be comfortable, and there'll never be any jeopardy in terms of Leeds going ahead and winning the title. However, there are a few reasons for me to think that the kind of 3-on about Leeds is really, really short. And let's start with Argyle, where, and I tweeted about this when I was kind of doing my research yesterday, Argyle's record against teams in the top 10 of the Championship at home park this season reads: played 9, won 6, drawn 2, lost 1, scoring 22 goals in 9 games. That is absolutely insane. I can't imagine. Is there any team in the league with a better record than that against these top teams? It is, and they are relegated. When you also consider that they beat Liverpool in the FA Cup at home park, even though the underlying numbers will suggest this is just totally anomalous, you have to come down with some kind of belief that there is something about these big games against these good teams, against good players, that plays into their hands. Whether it's a stylistic thing, and they are good at defending the low block and good at attacking in transition, whether it's a mental thing where these players enjoy playing against better opposition, whether it's a complacency thing from the teams that come to home park expecting to win, I have no idea. But it cannot be just a massive... if they'd won these games all 1-0, then I would get it. But it's the fact they're always a consistent goal threat. And we've seen, Plymouth Argyle at home park and their whole stay in the Championship have always been capable of bloodying the noses of big teams. We went to that game against Borough that they drew 3-3 a couple of seasons ago. They're always a good attacking side against these teams. And when you couple that with Leeds' away record, where if you look at Leeds' away record over the course of the season, they've only lost 3 games, but they haven't won that many. If you look at the score lines by which they've won home games, you've got a 7-0 at home to Cardiff, you've got a 6-0 at home to Stoke, you've got a 4-0, 2 4-0s I should say. They are often just light years away from their opposition. However, their away wins, there's one 4-0, but for the most part they're by 1 or 2 goals and that's it, and they've drawn a lot of away games too. For example, if you take the league table this season for Leeds away from home, from Norwich, who are currently 14th, down to Cardiff, who are currently in 24th, so 10 teams. They've only won 3 of those away games. 1-0 against Oxford in their last away game, 1-0 away at Derby, and 2-0 away at Stoke. So again, even someone like me who has the utmost respect for Leeds and think they're one of the best Championship teams we've ever seen compared to the field, there is a lot of evidence that away from home, against poor opposition, it's their undoing, and where they aren't as strong and where they aren't as capable to dominate. You then have the motivation factor, where obviously Leeds come into this motivated to try and win the title, and there's no denying that. And normally, an already relegated side would be priced up as basically having no belief in or no need to go and win a game. Plymouth Argyle are probably the most buoyant relegated side I can ever remember. They've already started their bounce back before they've even gone down under Miran Muslic, whose record since he's come into the club has been had them as a mid-table side. They were relegated half an hour, 45 minutes before kickoff on Saturday, away at a Preston team that needed a point, and they beat them 2-1. And the scenes of the players when they were celebrating their goals and in the away end showed that this is a club who are kind of revelling in their new dawn, even though their new dawn has ended in a relegation. And I think they will They would absolutely love proper Kevin Keegan style. I think it was the anniversary last week of Keegan's rant. But I think they would love to host Leeds and spoil their party and beat them on their own at home before going back down to League One, to show that that's where they belong before they come back. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily be playing the Asian lines or anything like that, or draw no bet, because I think that, as I said, there's every chance that Leeds turn up and they wipe the floor with them. But given how consistently Argyle have been good against good teams at home, given how much Leeds have struggled to get past teams away from home, I think 11-1 about Argyle to come away from this game with all 3 points. And there's also an argument where, if Argyle do go ahead and it's, the party kind of starts for Leeds, they're going back in the Premier League, is the incentive going to be there to come back into it? So, yeah, I think 11-1 is a massive price.
Yeah, more on that game later. George, do you like riddles?
Yes.
Does anyone really like riddles? They're quite annoying, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's great if you know it, but it can be quite annoying, especially when it just sticks in your mind.
You made me
for
like an idiot
ages.
now. You asked me if I liked them. I said yes. Now you're just mugging me off.
Yeah, well. When is it? March in early May is today's riddle.
Josh March.
Josh March, yeah, plays for Harrogate. 2 or more, 22-1 with AK Bets. That's on the special section of the AK Bets website. It's Morecambe against Harrogate. One team already relegated, one on the beach in Harrogate, toasting another year at EFL level, punching above their weight, just staying in the league. And I think the game could be anything. I wouldn't like to predict a winner, but Harrogate's, well, they've been playing pretty lively football in the last 6. 5 of them have gone over 3.5 goals. And Josh March doesn't have a great goal-scoring record, but he's one of their attackers. He's an absolute shotsman, George. And it's kind of remarkable how little he scores, considering. In fact, I'd go as far as to say someone needs to have a word with him, really. Simon Weaver needs to have a word with him over the summer. If he's going to keep starting games for this team, he either needs to work on his finishing or stop shooting so much. Since Boxing Day, he's had the most shots in League Two, 9 more than Didsy McGoldrick, and 24 more than third for shots, Luke Molyneux. 79 shots in that time. His goal conversion of 6% is pretty embarrassing. It doesn't stack up well to the others that take a lot of shots as well, with McGoldrick scoring 13%, Molyneux 15%, Harry Smith 11%, and Tolage 18% of their shots. So there's little justification for Josh March shooting this much, but for the sake of this bet, I'm glad that he does. In the last 5 games, he's had 3, 3, 8, 4, and 6. You've got to be excited to be backing someone that you're confident will have 3, but maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 shots in a game against an already relegated side. Priced up at 22-1 to score 2 or more. Josh March in early May. Come on. Also in League Two, to finish off my goalscorer picks, Hakeeb Adelican of Salford. They're at Carlisle. They need to win to guarantee a playoff place. Adelican is 18-1 to score 2 or more with AK Bets. I've noticed in the last few weeks very visibly how much Adelican is coming to the party and peaking at the right time. There's absolutely no doubt that at this level he's got too much talent. Maybe not always the fitness levels, the stamina, the application, whatever the case may be. But he's definitely, after a slow start in Salford colours, he looks more like the Adelican that was flying for Donny last season. And it's worth remembering that since he joined Doncaster at the very end of the January transfer window last year, any time has landed in first 9 of 18 starts for Donny, and then 8 in 22 for Salford. So any time has landed in 17 of 40 starts, just less than 1 in 2, which for a wide player is pretty remarkable. He has scored 3 braces already this season. He's selfish as hell, which I love for this bet. One incident recently where he had a shot that was parried and his teammate tapped it in, and he was visibly fuming that he hadn't scored and his teammate had. That's what I want here. He's on penalties as well, and up against the Carlisle side already relegated, with Salford needing to win to secure playoffs. Adelican 2 or more is 18-1. Let's finish with a roller coaster of a combo bet, George. We're putting up 4 over 4.5 picks. Is the best way to go about this a very sort of small stakes Yankee? Do you think that's the best way of getting value in an over 4.5 goals fun in the sun quad?
Yeah, a Yankee or a Lucky 15. Lucky 15 is 15 bets where you have the 4 singles, the 5 doubles, the 5 trebles, and an ACCA. A Yankee is exactly the same, but you don't have the singles. I would probably, maybe with the prices here, have a Lucky 15, but, that would mean if you wanted to stake £15, you would have a £1 Lucky 15, for example. So that's the way that it works. But yeah, that's how I'd probably play it, because then you're, if you can land 2, for example, then, you'll still get a decent return.
Well, let's hope that we do. What are you putting forward as your 2?
I'm putting up Coventry Borough as my first one. I always like it when you've got a kind of a big game between 2 teams where kind of one of them has to win. We know that in Lampard and Carrick, we've got 2 managers where a lot of their games go pretty heavy on goals. Borough have to go to Coventry and take the game to them. There's at no point in this game will they, even if they're 2-0 down, they will still have to keep flooding men forward in order to try and turn the game around and win it 3-2. Anything but a win isn't good enough for them. Whereas for Coventry, if they go behind, then the same thing happens, where if they start losing, if they go behind to Middlesbrough, then they absolutely have to win. So it should be really end-to-end in some respects. We spoke about this earlier, and your point was, well, surely there's a case that one team who's ahead is just going to really look to defend their lead and kind of drop very deep and time wasting the rest of things, which is true. But then when the onus on the other team is so much to score, and what that can create on the break, with if you leave one up top to catch them out, I still think it's normally a game. There was a game between Millwall and Blackburn. Is that right? About 3 or 4 years ago, which was kind of very similar to this in terms of what was at stake, and it went absolutely crazy. And then very, very different, Rotherham, Peterborough. We saw Peterborough lose 4-2 in midweek. Peterborough side where goals followed them around anyway, with Darren Ferguson in charge. Absolutely nothing on this game whatsoever. Since Matt Hamshaw came in at Rotherham, we've seen them score loads of goals and very high-scoring games themselves. A lot of very good attacking players on the pitch here. Malik Wilkes, Sam Nombe, Kwame Poku, Malik Mothersill, Ricky J. Jones. There seems no reason why this would be anything else apart from let's all have a fun game of football and attack, and try and go home happy at the end of it. And should go fairly nuts, I think, for goal chances.
That's what final day is all about. Well, no, it's actually about, proper drama and promotions achieved and relegations suffered or avoided. But the secondary thing that it's about is fun in the sun. And also, if you're interested, on Dear Ali and George, which is our bonus podcast for paid subscribers of NTT20.com, we predicted the scores of all 36 games this weekend, and what that would mean for the league table if what we think will happen comes true. I predicted 3-3 for Rotherham Peterborough. Thought that was quite spicy. You said you thought it was going to be 4-4. So there you go. That's part of the over 4.5 multi. I'm adding Plymouth against Leeds, and I see this a bit differently to you. I think certainly taking all your points about Argyle's home nuttiness. I think I'm a bit blinded by the fact that I watched Leeds on Monday against Bristol City. And even though I've seen about 30 Leeds games live this season, I was astounded at their level of performance. I think it's being taken for granted how good Leeds are. Obviously, you could argue that they're on the same level of number of points as Burnley, and therefore they're exactly as good as Burnley. There's different ways of looking at football. That's not necessarily how I see it. Every time I watch them, I think they look like the best Championship team that I can remember. Probably the next best that I can remember would be Marco Silva's Fulham. And they were unbelievable against Bristol City. And if they're anything like that at home park, I think they will win comfortably. They have motivation to do so, because if they win, they secure the title. And I believe that they are motivated to do that. The underlying numbers on FB Ref, you can sort the table by XG goal difference per game, and theirs is plus 1.27 XG per game. So a superiority over their opponents of 1.25 goals per expected goals. That is the highest in the Championship since Marco Silva's Fulham, and actually higher than them. So that the highest on record on FB Ref, which goes back, I think, 7 seasons. Argyle, they're at the bottom with minus 0.91 XG per game. So 9/10 of a goal worse than their opposition per expected goals in every single game. Now, that has improved under Muslic to a certain degree, albeit the underlying numbers might not be quite as good as you'd expect, given the results have been pretty good. But only Rotherham last season and Ipswich in 18-19 have a worse expected goal difference per game than Argyle's this season over 7 seasons. So the difference between the sides, I think, is ginormous. And with Argyle perhaps a little less inclined to sit back and soak up pressure and defend for their lives, which is kind of what you're meant to do against Leeds. I think that just opens the game up. Players like Solomon are just looking absurd at the moment. And with Leeds wanting to show off on their way to the title, I'm going for an over 4.5 goals pick, partly because I think Argyle could have a bit of fun themselves if Leeds get loose. I think a 4-1. But I can see Leeds scoring 4, 5, 6 here. I think that's potential. That's in the multi. And to finish off, Accrington against Chesterfield in League Two. Back Chesterfield, -1 as my nap. I explained that I think they're the sort of team who, especially as they're gunning for the playoffs and they are chasing rather than defending a playoff spot, it's within their interest just to keep going, keep attacking, put the pressure on the teams around them. And they're quite good at that. It suits the style of football. It suits the attacking talent that they have. And sure enough, they won 4-1 against Morecambe. Here they go to Accrington. Same vibe. If they win, they will reach the playoffs if Salford don't win. So it's very simple for them. Win the game, win it handsomely, put the pressure on Salford. Their last 2 games have gone over 4.5 goals, so it's just a good it's a good concoction this when it comes to Aki. Over 4.5. And Aki finishing the season well. They beat Walsall, they beat Salford, they drew with Tranmere and Carlisle, clear of safety. They have conceded 13 goals in their last 6, and over the course of the season, they've conceded 2 or more in 23 of their 45 games this season. I expect Chesterfield to do most of the scoring if it does go over 4.5 goals, but I absolutely think Accrington could get a couple too. So let's have some fun in the sun at Accrington, Chesterfield, Rotherham and Peterborough in League 2 and League 1. And then in the Championship, Coventry, Borough and Plymouth Leeds rounds out the over 4.5 goals multi. The prices for the over 4.5 multi, which probably should have done initially, are Coventry and Borough over 4.5 is 4-1. Plymouth Leeds is 100-30. Rotherham Peterborough is 7-2. And Accrington Chesterfield is the biggest price at 6-1. So the fourfold is obviously a pretty big price. That would pay 682-1, give or take. The doubles range between 19-ish to 1 and 34-1, and the trebles 97 and 157. So that's what we're going for to try and land a big jackpot on the final betting show of the regular season. It is absolutely boiling. And we have put quite a lot into various permutations and working out what we think is going to happen. I hope it's been enjoyable to listen to. Let's hope we have some winners, and look forward to catching up next week where we will be previewing the playoffs. We're not stopping. We're certainly not stopping anytime soon. Playoffs preview, including betting picks, on the feed early next week. Please make sure, if you're free on Saturday the 5th of May, and if you've enjoyed the betting show this season, the Monday pod as well, why not come and see us live at the Crucible on Saturday the 5th of July. Tickets I'll pop in the show notes, but get a group of mates together, come watch the show. It's a 3 p.m. kickoff on a Saturday, plenty of time for beers afterwards, and we'd love to see you there. So thank you very much. George, please recap your selections.
Sure, my nap. Sheffield United to win at home to Blackburn 11-8. The draw in Bristol City, Preston 11-4, my next best. Charlie Kelman 2 or more goals at 17-2 is my goal scorer, and Plymouth Argyle to beat Leeds on final day at 11-1 is my long shot.
Got 3 picks, teams to win and cover the -2 handicap. Bristol City -2 at 13-2. Then Charlton -2 at 5-1. Then Bradford -2 against Fleetwood at 4-1. All prices with AK bets. I've got 3 goal scorer picks to score 2 or more. Josh Sargent at 15-2. Also Josh March at 22-1, and Hakeem Adelican of Salford at 18-1. All available to back on the special section of the AK Bets website. The over 4.5 goals multi has Coventry and Borough from the Championship. That's at 4-1. It has Leeds and Argyle in the Championship at 100-30. It has Rotherham Peterborough at 7-2 in League One, and Accrington standing against Chesterfield at 6-1. There we go. I look forward to it all year, and it hasn't disappointed. Let's have some fun this weekend. Listen to the final day reaction pod on the feed Saturday night. Cannot wait for that. Cheers, AK Bets, for sponsoring this podcast. Thanks for listening, and go well.